And now I want to talk to my friend Frank Gaffney from the Center for Security Policy. Well, let's talk Turkey first, Frank. Have we already lost Turkey as an ally to the United States and NATO?
Well, welcome back, Lars. We're delighted to have you back, particularly because this is a topic that really needs attention, and I think it's not getting nearly what it deserves. We, I believe, have lost Turkey because of basically the inexorable advances that a Islamist, a Sharia supremacist, if you will, by the name of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, has made over the past, the better part of 2 decades now. He's the president of Turkey today, but he's building on the very concerted, inexorable progress of most of those 2 decades to develop what he calls his new Caliphate. And that is, again, a term that some may remember from the Ottoman Empire days, the heyday of Turkey that ruled much of the known world at the time at one point. And I think he aspires to return it to its glory at the expense of, Western civilization and freedom more generally. And, of course, as you know, we talk about it each week. He has a lot of people who share his aspiration. They may not have Turkey in mind as their focus of effort, but they certainly are places that are definitely interested in having Sharia dominate everybody else.
Okay, so we're sending him a message by delaying the F-35s and some of those moves, but what is it going to take to turn Turkey if we can, and what should we be willing to do if they're not going to turn?
Well, actually, I hope you're right. I hadn't heard that we were delaying the delivery of the F-35.
I'd heard that over the weekend, but yeah.
Good. Well, if that's so, that's a step in the right direction. I think what the president has begun to do is to impose sanctions on Turkey. That helps, especially as he's specifically focused on trying to extricate an American pastor by the name of Andrew Brunson, who has been brutally imprisoned and now has been put under house arrest, but is still being essentially held hostage by Turkey in exchange, they hope, for the surrender by us of a fellow by the name of Fethullah Gulen, an Islamist cleric who was for many years associated with Tayyip Erdoğan, but they've had a falling out, like sort of mafia dons. Frankly, I'd be just as happy to have him out of the United States, but he's here for the moment, and I think that what we need to do in addition is to begin moving Turkey into a different status from the full-fledged NATO ally that it has long been. Unfortunately, it's no longer a reliable ally.
Look, let me ask you something about the internal workings of this, and I'm not sure you'll know the answer, but I'll just ask anyway because I'm curious. Is he doing this because of his own personal beliefs? Is he doing it because he believes that the constituency he represents in Turkey wants this? And is he doing it because he's making a bet on the future that being an Islamist-centered country is going to be to his benefit, which seems to suggest that he's betting that more and more of that part of the world will be going that direction? Because I can't imagine that he'd say we see a benefit to making Turkey an Islamist republic, where the rest of the world is, say, going the other direction. Is he reading some signals that we're not seeing?
Look, he believes it is Allah's will that he will rule the world. That may sound ridiculous, but unfortunately, a lot of ridiculous things have translated into horrific grief for millions and millions of people. And in this case, I think he shares this conviction, as I said, with an awful lot of other Sharia supremacists. And whether it's imminently likely or whether it will be simply a project that will take years to accomplish, I believe he's intent on pursuing it to, again, the great detriment of Western civilization. We already see what he's done to Europe. Lars, let's not forget that the vast majority of those Muslim immigrants who have been transforming Europe over the past few years have come from Turkey or were facilitated in getting to the European continent by Turkey, and that's what he's up to. And I think that his plan is ambitious. It is insidious. And we've got to stop pretending that he's a NATO ally in good standing, or we will be further aiding and abetting him. And I think the president's begun making that shift, and it's high time.
Frank, we could talk about this all night, but let me shift to the Space Force, because you see this as a key part of our national defense.
Well, more to the point, Donald Trump sees it as a key part of our national defense, and I think he's absolutely right, Lars. What most of us haven't really any concept of is the extent to which just about everything we depend upon in terms of our economy, our conveniences, cell phones, telecommunications, stock trading, all manner of things depend critically upon space, to say nothing of our national defense. And what our enemies have figured out is if they can wrest control of space, if they can operate there with impunity, if they can deny us access to it and the ability to command the high frontier, as it's called, they can be in a dominant position militarily and in terms of, again, economic matters as well. And this is why I think the president's absolutely right to be talking about a space force. The one thing that I would argue is that he needs to pull in not only the military components into such an effort, but also there are something like 60 different agencies of the U.S. government that have one aspect or another of the space portfolio. They all need to be pulled in as well.
I mean, Frank, to your point, my understanding is that not just convenience, I mean, having Alexa or having the internet, but if you have high-speed stock trading on which our financial centers depend, and they lose the GPS satellites that provide the timing signals for that you could literally shut down Wall Street and the commodities exchanges and all those if you could shut off some of those satellites by, say, destroying them in orbit, and restoring them might be a long time coming. So we could be looking at something that could be more financially devastating to the United States than the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, I think that's exactly right. And the only thing I would quibble about is it's not just more, it's far more devastating, and as you say, far more enduring in terms of its inconvenience. I'd put it up there with the possible loss of our electric grid as a nation-changing phenomenon. And we've simply got to recognize that others have figured out that is an Achilles heel for this country and are working hard to have the capability to inflict that sort of harm on us. Deterring it is of critical importance, of course. Defending our assets there, defeating enemy action against them is also, I think, needed, and I believe it will flow from this Space Force initiative.
Well, I know that the comics have been having a field day with it, but they also had a field day with the Star Wars, or the SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, and we all understand how important that is. It was Ronald Reagan's dream, and it's actually been realized. Frank, thanks for the work you do at the Center for Security Policy, and thanks for the time tonight.